So this video is all about one specific technique that I think can absolutely elevate our street photography to a whole nother level. And I want to start this video off by showing you that technique in action through this wonderful photograph taken by Leonard Freed. So he took this photograph in a prison in New York in 1972, and he had this to say about it. "Their arms were notched like a hunter's rifle. 'Show me your tattoos,' I said to the prisoners. They did. A fight broke out. They were a box of matches ready to go up in flames." Isn't that just an evocative and lovely and poetic way of describing what's going on in this photograph? But the main thing that I love about this photo is just how much information is included in the frame. Like, it's absolutely packed full of stuff going on, and there's not a wasted space in the frame at all. So that's really what I want to talk about in today's video, the technique of filling the frame. And I think the technique filling the frame gets bandied about quite a lot as something to focus on or a tip to improve in our photography. But I really want to explore what it means and also the 3 levels I think you can go through. So especially if you're a beginner and you're not quite sure how to start including more on your frame, we're just going to go through those 3 levels to hopefully end up building your frames into much more exciting and engaging photographs. So what exactly is filling the frame? I guess for me, filling the frame just simply means an image that's got lots of stuff going on in it. It's not too chaotic that it looks overcomplicated or messy. There's just enough going on to keep you interested and keep you engaged with what's going on in the frame. I don't know about you, but those kind of photographs are the ones that I love the most from other photographers that I admire. And it's something that I really aspire to try and achieve in my own photography as well. And one of my absolute favourite documentary photographers, Abbas, he used to say the same about his own work. And when we do look at a few of Abbas's more complex frames, the ones with lots going on, they're just so visually rich and engaging and beautiful to look at. And that's what I really want to aspire to in my own photography. And I think by the end of this video, hopefully it's something that you'll have more of an idea about how to include in your own photography as well. So it's simple, right? You just need to walk down the street, find something going on with lots of people, and then just take a photo of that and you filled the frame. Well, maybe not so fast, you know, like how many times have you gone out and maybe tried to improve your compositions by filling the frame with more information and then just coming back from the day and just kind of going, well, that just looks messy, or that's incoherent, or that just it's all blurry and just doesn't really have a great composition. So it's a lot harder than it looks, but there are some simple steps we can follow to gradually improve our layering and our filling the frame over time. So we're going to start now with level 1. When I first started street photography, I'd go out time and time again, find an interesting character walking towards me, kind of move in front of them and snap the photo and then move on. And there's nothing wrong with that. I still do that kind of street photography now. But after a while, I just found that I was looking back at my photographs and it was all the same idea repeated over and over again. Like the main focus of the image was bang center in the frame, and it just wasn't that interesting and I got a little bit bored of it. So what I tried to do next to lift those images, to start filling the frame a little bit more, was find areas or find places that had more going on, that were a little bit busier with people. And rather than just trying to fit all the people into the frame, I'd find one focal point, one thing that I wanted to focus on as the main subject of the image, but then try and position myself to include more things around that main event happening. And what started to happen was my frames got a little bit more complicated. They got a little bit messier, but over time I sort of refined that a little bit, and it got to the point where I took this photograph that I'm really pleased with, where I was in a really busy, crowded environment, and I saw this lovely tender moment of this mum with her son in her hands, kind of stroking his neck, and it was a beautiful, tender human moment. And I could have got a lot closer and just had that as the main focus of the image, and that's what the image was. But I decided to include a little bit of the hubbub and the atmosphere and the craziness going on around that main focal point, just to fill the frame up with more information. And it gives a bit of context, it gives a bit more energy, and then it makes that little moment of quiet and tenderness amongst this chaotic environment a little bit more powerful, in my opinion. So that was the first step in sort of improving or getting closer to filling the frame that I wanted to. And the next thing that I focused on, still sort of part of this level 1, was filling the frame from left to right or right to left. So I wasn't thinking in terms of trying to have really complex layered images front to back. We'll cover that a little bit later on. But I started off just trying to have that one main focus that I was interested in, the thing that I saw that was photo worthy. And rather than put it dead center, I just put it to the left or put it to the right, and then try and fill the remainder of the frame with one other thing that was happening. It could just be a person, it could have just been another thing. that wasn't the main event, but just to have a little bit more in the frame to make it more engaging for the viewer and less sort of just obvious, I suppose, in terms of composition. And when we do that, we might end up with a photograph more like this, where I've filled the frame from left to right or right to left, depending on how you want to read the image, but there's something of interest happening in multiple areas of the frame. Again, I'm not worrying too much about front to back. It's just about having that extra visual interest to enjoy in the photograph. I could have just focused on the left part of the image with this boy's hand on a mum's head, or I could have just focused on the right hand side of the image with the couple sort of in a nice embrace, but I decided to try and include all of that in the frame just to make it more engaging. And for me, this ticks the box of filling the frame in that first level that we were talking about. So to summarize this bit then, we just want to start thinking about, rather than one thing of interest bang in the center of the frame, just try and include something to the left or the right, or find a really chaotic, busy area and find your focal point and make that the focus of the image, but also including the context around it. So what's the next step? What's level 2? What can we do to take this to another level in terms of filling our frame? Well, level 2 is quite simple. It's, instead of filling the frame from left to right, this time we want to fill the frame from front to back, but just with 2 elements. All you want to have is 2 elements in your frame, one closer to the camera and one further away. And just by doing that, you're instantly giving more depth to the frame. Like, we're taking a photograph of a 3D environment, obviously, right? But sometimes it can be really hard to translate that into a flat photograph. And just by having something closer to the camera and something further away, that will instantly give you more depth. So for me, the easiest way to start doing that is just to focus on the foreground. So find something that's going on, like you're on the street or an event or wherever you might find yourself, and you're just thinking about your composition, you're thinking about depth and thinking about filling the frame. And all you want to do is just find something of interest to put close to your camera in the foreground. That's what you're taking a photograph of first. Then you need to move yourself around or change angles or just find the position that works to also include something in the background. So you've got something a bit further away and something in the foreground, and instantly, trust me, that will make a massive difference to your photographs. It will suddenly give them much more depth and much more visual appeal. So for example, this photograph here that I took in the summer, I simply saw this mum and her daughter holding hands, and I thought that would make a lovely foreground element, show a bit of depth. And then I included the dancers in the middle of the image. And if the hands weren't there or the dancers weren't there, it wouldn't quite work. But just because we've got that simple foreground element and the element in the middle, it just gives a little bit of depth, fills the frame a little bit more. And in my opinion, it makes a much more engaging photo than if we hadn't had that foreground element. So this photograph I took in Spain, I saw this couple holding some flowers, and then the 2 boys lower down were throwing flower petals in the air. And I thought this could be a lovely frame, a play on an older generation, a younger generation tied together with the flowers. And I used that forced perspective by getting closer to the foreground element, which happens to be on the left, and then having the boys further away on the right-hand side of the frame. And it just gives, again, a bit of depth, a bit of engagement, a little bit more interest, visual interest in the frame. And yeah, it just ties it all together in an image that I really like. But it's nothing too complicated or crazy in terms of composition, right? Like, all I was doing is just including one thing in the foreground and another thing in the background. And in my opinion, again, it kind of works out into a nice photograph because you've got that layering, you've got that depth, you've got a frame that's filled with information. By the way, you might be thinking, why have I got these big pinboards at the back here with just 2 images on them? Well, that's because I've had these pinboards up for months now, actually. And I bought them because I wanted to sit down and plan out and print out a load of my work, get it all up onto the pinboard so I could look at it and analyze it and move it around and replace it. Yeah, so I just didn't do any of that. I bought the pinboards, put them up, sat down to look at my photography, and then just decided I hated all of it. I don't know if you can relate to that, but yeah, it was kind of a bit depressing, really, when I sat down and was like, well, don't like any of my work, so I'm not going to bother printing them and putting them up. But I think that kind of happens to all of us, and over time I've gradually decided to like my own work again, and I have printed out 100 photos. They will be arriving soon and they'll be going up there. So hopefully in videos going forward, there'll actually be some photographs in the background. But anyway, I digress from the video. So we've talked about having something from left to right, and we've talked about having something from front to back. And now really level 3 is just putting that all together and having something from left to right and front to back, and more of those kind of elements that you can include, the better. And that for me is the kind of pinnacle of layering. You're probably familiar with Alex Webb's work. He's one of the best photographers, in my opinion, of that sort of layered style. And it's not easy to do at all, right? This is when we get to the, I guess, pinnacle of what I would call filling the frame, is that Alex Webb style of photography. But again, I think a lot of photographers can be put off getting to that stage because they think, well, I can't do that, it's too complicated or it's too difficult to do and I'll never be able to include more on the frame. But you can do that if you follow the process like I've said in this video, starting off with level 1, level 2, and then eventually getting to level 3. I'm not the best photographer at it in the world, but it's something that I love so much that it's something that I've really been focusing on trying to improve going forward. So this is a photograph that I took in Istanbul last year, and for me it does exactly what I want it to do, which is fill the frame, but in that sort of more layered way. So I have got the frame filled from left to right, but also front to back. And what works for me the most about this image is the interaction with the elements in the frame. So cats, you might usually see chasing birds, right? But the cat kind of looks lazy and bored in the foreground of the image. And then it's the two boys that are looking at the birds which are in flight. So you can see there's sort of this interaction between the boys in the frame and the birds, and the cat just ignoring them all and enjoying his day. And I think that's something that we can miss when we start trying to do layered photographs. We just put one person here, one person here, one person there in the background, and it might look nice, but there's not really any connection. There's no interaction between your subjects in the frame. And that's something that Alex Webb does so well, and some other photographers that are great at layering. They don't just put lots of things in the frame for the sake of it. They're doing it with intention, and they're trying to have some kind of interaction between the subjects in the frame. Another photograph I took in Istanbul, really simple, this one. I found my foreground elements that I think were quite interesting and colourful, and I made sure to get close to them so they framed the edges of the image. And then the boys swimming in the middle of the frame just give that depth and add the layering, a bit more storytelling. There's the youth element of the two sort of well-dressed kids in the foreground and the two kids just sort of playing in the water. There's nice parallels there. And yeah, I think the image works really well, and it does that from left to right and front to back. You've got a bit of layering in there. This photograph I took in Spain last year, and again, I decided to choose my foreground element, which was the man, the soldier in the front there on the right-hand side. And then once I'd had my foreground element, I wanted to try and build the rest of the frame. So rather than just having a photograph of the main event, which was this big religious platform that people were carrying through the streets, I could have just photographed that. But I wanted to include a bit of the context, so I included the soldier. Then the men in the middle just lead the eye through to the big religious event that's happening in the street. And there's also this little man popping his head through on the left-hand side of the frame, which I think is a nice little detail. Just a little bit more story of someone trying to squeeze past or wondering what's going on. And this photograph that I took this summer, again, I'm aiming to layer it from left to right. So I've put the figure on the left to frame the image. I've got the hands all sort of spaced nicely, leading through the frame. And then you've got the emotion of the woman in the middle. So she's kind of the main focal point, but the rest of the image is layered around her. And for me, this really fills the frame, and it's really what I was going for at the time. It's not as kind of well-spaced and architecturally designed as maybe one of Alex Webb's layered photographs might be. And there's probably too many elements in this frame to really call it a layered photograph. But I do really like the way that it fills a frame with energy, and it's the vibe and the emotion that I was trying to capture from the day. And I think that image does it well. Now, you can probably tell, I'm sure, that I've been winging this video a little bit in terms of how I usually approach these kind of videos, where they're a lot more heavily scripted. The videos I've done like this in the past for the channel have been a lot more rigid because I want to make sure I get across the information and the value to you as much as possible without waffling and just making it really concise. But I've found that by doing that, I kind of wasn't really getting myself across as I wanted to in these videos and coming across a little bit more wooden and not really my authentic self. So I really want to try and do more videos like this in the future. But I would also love to know what you think. Like, would you prefer a video that was more heavily scripted and just tight and concise and da-da-da-da-da? Or would you prefer me more just talking to camera and sharing something that I love about photography and street photography and things like that? This video only really just touches on the subject of filling the frame. There's so much more to it, which I can explore in later videos. And I should also say that it's not the only way of doing street photography, right? It's not the best way of doing street photography. It's not the way you have to do street photography to be better at it. It's just a way of doing street photography. And it's a way that I happen to really like and really enjoy. And it's something that I'll be trying to improve at and get better better at in the future. But I have to say that learning to fill the frame is something that I wish I'd learned a lot sooner on my photography journey, because it really did start to improve my photography a lot more, a lot quicker when I started putting some of the techniques and tips from this video into action. So if you want to find out a bunch of other things that I wish I'd learned when I first started street photography, then that's what this next video is all about.